Flight Simulator 2024 is going to be a much bigger deal than I expected, and it's probably likely that many of you will feel the same way. So in a recent Flight Sim Expo 2024 that took place this weekend, Microsoft revealed and confirmed a whole load of new details about the upcoming brand new sim. Arguably the biggest feature, which many of us had speculated on, is that yes, we will be able to get out of the aircraft and walk around. And there's actually real in-sim reasons for doing so. This isn't just something that's superficial. You'll be able to do external pre-flight checks, and that includes moving some of the covers from the engines as well as other activities. To achieve all of this walking around capability then, Microsoft have gone all out with developing characters, and apparently they do look very, very good. Beyond that, there's a brand new 3D photogrammetry system that's going to be used not just for cities but also for many other areas around the world. Airports are going to be overhauled to become far more busy. The world is going to be broken down into regions, and each different region will have different biomes. The hint in the trailer about the sky not being the limit was indeed a very real hint, and there's reasons for that. Some of this extends to shipping. In fact, every single ship on Earth is now going to be fully simulated, and its position is going to be tracked and updated in real time, well, every 30 seconds. And this will use real-world data. More on that in just a minute. All of this then is just scratching the surface, so let's get into all the details that we currently know. So for those of you who haven't heard yet, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 is releasing this year on the 19th of November. It is a brand new simulator, entirely distinct and separate from Flight Sim 2020. This will be a separate purchase. Meanwhile, the current edition of the sim, Flight Sim 2020, is going to continue, and it will run alongside the new version. So let's get into all these details. Walking around inside the sim, yes, you'll be able to actually physically get out of your seat, leave the aircraft and walk around. And that includes walking around airports, but also other locations around the world. So Microsoft really have gone all out on this. Characters do have high detailed models. In fact, they've gone as far as creating different clothing which is region specific. So depending on where you'll land, you'll find that the clothing should hopefully at least match that specific region. This has been extended to airports themselves, which are now much higher detailed, and you'll see a lot of characters walking around, both inside the airport, walking onto planes and many other such things. That means airports will no longer look lifeless. Microsoft also did hint that certain mission activities, such as this airlifting scene you can see right here, will involve you actually getting out the aircraft and participating in the airlift directly. He didn't outright confirm or say that, but his words did very strongly hint at that. And when it comes to VIP passenger missions, yes, your aircraft will actually have physical passengers on board, which you'll have to take from location to location. Now, it's not just the characters that are a big deal when it comes to Flight Sim 2024, but also the brand new photogrammetry. So we've seen to what extent this actually looks like in the two trailers that were released, but now Microsoft have confirmed that indeed many areas will be simulated to this level, and that includes 3D grass, trees and other foliage. Microsoft said that this is an entirely new system of photogrammetry, and the extent to which it functions is something that wouldn't have been achievable just a few years ago. It explains then why so many of these areas look so good when you're down at ground level. And on that note, the regions in the world are going to be broken down. There's 30 different plant biomes, so that means when you go to Australia, the correct type of plants and trees should actually be present. And that will be the same whether you go into Canada, Africa, or indeed anywhere else. And this has also been extended to crops. This is the crops in fields. There's 20 to 30 different types of crops, and well, crop fields are not only correctly situated, but also going to be correctly orientated. Microsoft have spent a lot of time on this, and this is actually going to form a part of the gameplay, as you can see right here. Now, interestingly, Microsoft did give another clip, which we can see here, this helicopter dusting or crop dusting, and you can see the view into the distance. Apparently, these visuals are not just localized, but they extend over vast distances. Microsoft confirmed that this level of detail extends all the way to the horizon. But that said, it's not immediately clear that the entire world is going to be constructed in this way. In fact, Microsoft said that they'd purchased 1 million square kilometers of high-level tins. They said that when showing this particular area, and they said so far currently it's going to be limited to national parks and other similar areas. They went on to say that the rest of the world will be updated over time, so that this is an ongoing process. But Jörg Newman, head of the flight simulator, said that the goal is eventually to get the entire world looking like this. Now, it's not all about visuals. There are some big changes when it comes to flight simulation itself, as well as the physics, and you get a hint of that in this video. What you're seeing here with the arrows and the other visual assets going on around the scene is the computational fluid dynamics. So this is where the sim simulates the air movement around the aircraft and the impact it has on the world itself. Computational fluid dynamics now are simulated as much as possible to a very, very great extent. And you can see this has not only an impact on the aircraft, but also on the environment. You can see how it's pushing the grass down as the helicopter moves around. What's especially interesting about this is that the CFD is simulated to have a history of 6 minutes, and it also cascades with the other effects going on around the world. In fact, CFD is not just simulated for the helicopter or the airplane that you're flying, but in fact it's simulated for every single aircraft around the world in real time. And again, there will be a history for each of those going back 6 minutes. So obviously this is going to require immense computational power and isn't something that will be simulated, I guess, on your local PC. Microsoft said multiple times that this will rely on cloud computing. Therefore, it will be heavily dependent on Microsoft's Azure systems. So all of this will have further repercussions. It means that not only will the CFD be simulated and its impact on the aircraft, but also its impact on the environment. And this will extend to things such as how cloth is simulated. And that's why they got the advertising banner here. The rope, the banner itself, everything is fully simulated. And this also extends to moving things around with the helicopter, such as this big unit here. Again, the rope as well as the air conditioning unit is also being simulated, and the drag and air currents and how they impact these objects. Now, in my opinion, this is something that shouldn't be underestimated. Computational fluid dynamics, this is something that other flight sims do simulate, but no one, as far as I'm aware, at least on the consumer grade level flight sims, has ever simulated anything to quite this extent. In fact, it's pretty much unprecedented and is something that, well, we just don't ever see. Now, Microsoft are obviously making good use of this in terms of both gameplay as well as its effect on the simulation itself. In short then, this new CFD system is a massive distinction between not only Flight Sim 2024 versus Flight Sim 2020, but pretty much every other single flight sim out there. And yes, this also means that hot air balloons are a very real thing, and they're obviously also going to be fully simulated. All this then is very interesting and something I'm really looking forward to trying out. Back on visuals again, the lighting engine has been completely reworked, and that's one of the reasons some of the visuals in some of the areas look so much better. The cloud system has also been fully improved. There's new cloud layers and cirrus clouds have also been introduced. Now, the new lighting system combined with the new cloud layers also means that the atmospheric conditions of the way the light rays pass through the atmosphere will also directly impact the clouds, and that means you're going to get far more colourful skies. Now, at the start of the video, I also touched on ships. It seems that boats and ships are going to be a massive deal when it comes to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. In fact, they're going as far as simulating every single ship in the world. The position of these will actually be updated in real time every 30 seconds. So that means, yes, ships will now move around physically. What's more, the ocean, the sea, the waves themselves will not simply clip through objects. Objects that are floating on the ocean will now interact with the way the tide, the way the currents actually move. So as the waves bob up and down, so too will the objects. In short, the sea is now fully simulated along with the objects that are floating on it. Now obviously this goes way beyond simple visualization and simple graphics because it will have a direct impact upon the sim itself. It means that the way certain missions play out will be dramatically affected by the weather as well as the ocean. For example, if you do these sea rescue missions, it's going to get very difficult depending on the size of the waves. Additionally, helipads. Now Microsoft have said that they're going to be adding every helipad on Earth, and this is something that's taken them 18 months to research. It's obviously a massive undertaking, and in terms of ships, yes, it means that you'll be able to land on ships that also have helipads. Now, helipads and ships are not the only things that are also being added. Oil rigs. they're going to be added. We've seen a few of those in the trailer. There's a few of them in the sim right now in the 2020 edition. Microsoft are taking this much further with 2024 by adding every single oil rig in the world. That quite clearly is going to have repercussions for the number of emissions that can be spent around these locations, as well as the ability to go and land on them with the helicopters. And talking of objects added into the world, you may be aware that in Flight Sim 2020 there's a lot of missing vertical objects. So these would be things such as massive large aerials that present a flight risk or flight hazard. Now, these are all going to be added, or at least many of these are going to be added into Flight Sim 2024. Currently, a massive database is being assembled whereby all of these, the locations of all of these objects is being calculated and figured out. That constitutes roughly 500,000 different objects, and these are all going to be added into the sim. Now, once again, moving away from visuals to actual in-sim activity, we come to flight planning. Now, flight planning within Flight Sim 2020 isn't that great. In fact, it's virtually non-existent beyond the initial flight setup. There's a lot of other apps out there and other utilities that you can use, but none of them that are directly built into the sim. This is all going to change with Flight Sim 2024. There's going to be full flight planning tool built right into the sim, and this will be accessible outside of the sim as well. You'll be able to use this on browsers, tablets and phones. It can also be viewed from directly inside the cockpit on the heads-up displays on the MFDs. So we're not going to dive into too much detail on this, but this is a great feature. Instead, what I'll do is read a list of actual features that this new flight planning utility is going to contain. So it will allow you to do route planning, fuel and payload planning, vertical profile planning, items planning, typical briefing information such as weather, and airport information as well. It's going to have full VFR support along with charts, IFR support along with charts. There's going to be overlay charts, VFR and IFR views on maps, including procedural overlays and charts, VFR and IFR focused navlogs, customizable AFPs, so that's customizable automated flight plans, and the availability of this is going to be on PC, Xbox, web browsers, and mobile devices. So ultimately, this new flight planning system is going to be something that totally changes and really enhances the way all of us interact with the sim. It's a really nice addition. And talking of nice additions, we finally come to action replay. So this is something that the sim kind of has in a very poor implementation over on PC at the moment in Flight Sim 2020. When it comes to Flight Sim 2024, it's going to be dramatically enhanced. Now, many of you who have used a feature like this for a few years are probably going to be aware of the third-party action replay utility called Flight Control Replay. Well, Microsoft have partnered up with the developers of this to ensure that the flight control replay system is going to be fully integrated directly into the sim itself. Again, I won't go into full details on exactly how this is going to work, but I will give you a list on what the feature will contain. So you'll be able to record and replay flights, you'll be able to create and save flight replays, instant replay feature for quickly reviewing critical moments like landings and takeoffs without interrupting these sessions. So that'll be somewhat like what was in the previous versions of Flight Simulator, something that was much needed in 2020, but for some reason never actually made it. There's going to be a time slider for easily controlling the replay. It looks as though you'll be able to take control of the plane again at any time during the replay, so you'll be able to basically redo something you didn't want to do or just go in a different direction. There's also going to be a ghost plane feature, so you're about to follow the flight path of other flights. Flight information feature for populating skies with more aircraft in replay mode, and a flyby camera specifically for recorded flights. So that's many of the key features that Microsoft has so far discussed about the upcoming new version of the sim, but they did confirm that there's a whole load more going on that they haven't yet revealed or haven't yet discussed. The Flight Sim Expo 2024 also had a bunch more information about Flight Sim, which I'll be including in a separate video. A lot of that was to do with the marketplace as well as